Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a lace cane but using a homemade opal clay. Now that will make more sense in a little bit, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a cane very similar to this but with just white, and the translucent areas are going to have kind of an opalescent effect. Now you're going to want some translucent polymer clay, and this is Primo. You can use Cerner as well, that works very well. I have a mica powder and then jade and gold metal leaf. Choose whatever colours you want in the metal leaf and the mica powder. Okay, now we're going to start off with the metal leaf actually. So let me grab that. I only need one piece. And I've got two here, so let me just grab one. And I'm going to take that, and it's a nice green colour, and I'm just going to apply that to the surface. Doesn't really matter too much. Then I'm going to flip this over. If the clay breaks at all, not a big problem. We're going to be mixing this all in, and I'm going to take the gold leaf and I'm going to apply that to the back, just making sure that it's stuck to the clay. Then you're going to grab your mica powder of choice and you're going to pop some of that here as well. And all we're doing is colouring the clay essentially, so I'll put on about that much. And you can always add more if you want more later. Then you're going to take that and you're going to mix that up together, and I might actually just spread that around to give it a little bit more surface area. Then fold that over, and this is going to make a mess. That's fine. And I would advise hand mixing it to start, because that would make a really big mess in your pasta machine. I will bring it over to the pasta machine in a bit, but to start with, definitely mix it by hand. Let me just grab my blade. There we go. Just to unstick it, and I'm really just going to try to get all of that mica powder on there. And yeah, just mix that together like so until it's completely mixed together, or until it's holding together enough that you can bring it to your pasta machine. Basically that means incorporating the mica powder to the degree where the clay starts to stick to itself again. And this is going to break up the metal leaf, and it's going to break up the mica powder and just give you a really interesting effect. Okay, and here is the pasta machine, and you're just going to take that and start mixing it through like so. And this is a Lucy clay pasta machine. You can get pasta machines a lot smaller than this. Generally you can find them at places like I got my first few at Kmart. You can also get them on eBay. So definitely don't have to use this pasta machine. But you can see there how that's mixing through and creating a really nice effect. So just continue mixing it through until you get rid of uneven effects such as this translucent patch here, and this will incorporate everything together and create something along the lines of a opal clay. Okay, and there we go. That is how it should look, and you can see it's got a decent amount of sparkle to it. And that is what's going to be the center. Also bear in mind that this is translucent, so once it has baked, it's going to darken a bit. So the color that you've got right now should be about 2 shades lighter than what you want it to end up being, just because of the translucent clay. Then you're going to take that and you're going to roll it up and form it into a log, and just spend a good amount of time pressing that together and making sure that there aren't any air bubbles, like so. Just really compact that together. That's going to make your life a lot easier later on. And my translucent is particularly dry, so it's prone to just not sticking together all that well. And then you add into that the amount of mica powders and metal leaf, and yeah, you just want to spend a bit of time making sure that's blended together. Then roll that into a smooth rod of clay, like so. Then you're going to bring over some white polymer clay. Okay, and I've rolled this out to about 1 millimeter thick, and you're just going to pop that down like so. You're going to grab a tissue blade and just trim up the end. Place your log on top and then trim down the sides to make sure that you don't have too much extra clay, like so. Okay. And then just take that and just get it to stick, and then wrap that the whole way around until you reach the end, and then cut along the seam line. And all of this white I could put back with my regular white, or in my case I'm going to be using that for the rest of the piece once we're finished with the cane. Then make sure to get rid of that seam line by giving it a good press and then a roll, and I'm going to move that out the way. Alright, and then you want to just press and make sure everything's formed together, and then start reducing it down into multiple size pieces, because we're going to be making a cane from it, and I want a number of different sizes to assemble my cane with. And it's a pretty easy cane to reduce. And let's see, I just think there's an air bubble here. Yes, there is. If you find an air bubble, just press it, cut like so, and then smooth that air out. And you should catch those as you're reducing them, because it will pop up and you'll be able to see them. Alright, and this is already at the size that I want for my first lot, so I will cut roughly in half. Then I will reduce this down by half, cut in half again, and then repeat that process as many times as I need to create as many different sizes of rod as I need. Okay, and there we go. Then you're going to take those and just line them up, and then we're going to cut them into equal sections. I'm just lining them up because some of them have end pieces. Okay, there we go. Then this one I'm going to trim like so, and these ones also have end pieces, so I'll trim them as I get to them. And I'm just going to cut them into sections, trying to keep them equal as I do that. Okay. There we go, and this one also is a bit of an end piece. Alright, and there we go. Then you're going to take those and you're just going to start to assemble them at random, essentially. So just grab those, start popping them together as you wish. Like so, and that is how we're going to create our cane. And I'm going to try to keep this in roughly a square shape, because then I can reduce it and make more if I want. But yeah, just continue placing all the pieces together. If pieces are too long, you can always press down on them and then place them in like so. And yeah, just continue doing that. Okay, then you're going to take that and you are going to reduce it. And I've got it in a rectangle shape. That also works. Any kind of shape that is a rectangle or a square will work. It's circles that I want to stay away from, because then I have to reduce it into this kind of shape and give it corners. Triangles also work, just circles because there's no corners. You're just going to take that and you're going to steadily reduce it. And I don't actually want to reduce it too far. I just want to reduce it enough that all of the pieces are stuck together and compacted and aren't going to fall apart on me. That's really all I want to do. And then once you've done that, then you can take your cane and slice it. I've also got a piece of white ready to go off to the side here. And let me just grab a sharp blade. There we go. And I am going to cut this halfway through so that we can get the best slice. And that is how it should look. It's almost like crocodile scales. Alright, and then I'm just going to cut probably 3 pieces from this. And I want nice thin pieces if possible. So I'm going to cut a couple to try to get a good couple of slices. Okay, and that should be enough. Then I'm going to take those, bring this over, just separate those so that they don't stick to one another. Okay, bring that over, and then just down the middle of this I'm going to place these. Like so, completely lining them up. Alright, and I just want to strip, and I'm going to put those to the side. I'll use those in a little bit, but these ones I am now going to roll out and stretch. Okay, and to do that I'm just going to use my acrylic roller, and you could burnish if you want, but I'm going to do it this way so that I can stretch this out and distort it. Like so. I want it to be distorted. And those stripes should blend into the white background so that we only have the scales essentially. Okay, and I'm just going to keep doing that until it's completely flattened out. That feels about right. Alright, then don't use the flexible blade to lift it up. Use your firm blade, that way it won't cut the sheet. Alright, and there we go, you can see how that looks. Then I've got a Monstera leaf mold that I'm going to be using. You can use this however you want. Excuse me for the background noise. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to place that down like so, and I should be able to see from the back how that's lining up. I want it to go down the middle of the leaf. Yep, that looks about right. Place that there, and then use a baby wipe or any kind of rag, anything but your fingers, because your clay will stick to your fingers and I don't want that. And just gently press that down into the mold. There's not enough clay there to actually fill the mold properly, just enough to kind of get the whole thing started. And this is to prevent your fingers from sticking. And if you've got a sharp point in your mold, like for instance the stem, you really want to pay close attention to that. Make sure that the clay is getting down in there, because those areas generally get left out. You can really dig that in there, make sure that it's getting in there. Again, you can cut out your piece. I've just chosen to use a mold today, so feel free to use whatever you have on hand. Alright. Then I'm going to grab some of my leftover pieces that I have. Allow this to dry first, but you can grab some of your leftover pieces and cut some of them out. Like I have these pieces here actually, these little offcuts. I think this is a perfect time to use them, and there's also some offcuts over here. So while that is drying, I'm just going to take a couple more slices from this so that I can use them, and then once I get to the offcut bit, the area where the white lines are starting to fail, that's what I'm going to use to fill the mold. That way the back can look a little interesting at the same time. So I'll just cut that up, break it up a little bit, and I'm going to do the same here. Just chop those up into little pieces. Okay, and that should be dry by now. Then you can take that, pop that together and just form that into one piece, soften it up, and then we can pack it into the mold. Okay, then once you've got that, you can cut that in half, so, and I'm going to use it like this. I'm going to just spread it out a little bit so that it fits the mould, because this is quite a large mould. And I don't need it near the stem. The stem I can fill out quite easily. I'm just going to place that there, then I'll bring the baby wipe back over again. And you're going to really press into that mould, getting everything compacted and fitted together. Like so. You can even use your roller. Like so. And this is why I've got the baby wipe here, so that it doesn't stick, so that I can do this. Okay, and let's check how that's looking. I can see from the indent over here that I've still got a little. If at any point you want to look, you can check from the back how it's looking. Okay, and we're almost there. Okay, and then once you've got that pressed together, you're going to then go and trim around the edges. This clay can get used for backing. You could also get a fair bit of the white back by trimming away some of that green, but just remove that so that you don't have too much clay to work with. And then you're going to start trimming the extra clay off, like so, and just go slowly, because it's a big mould. Big moulds can be a little tricky to work with, especially if you've got a specific pattern that you're working with. But you just want to start shaving that extra clay off, and then the pattern will reveal itself. Okay, and then once you've got that done, grab yourself a texture of some kind, and I'm going to use this one. Any texture will work. I'm going to pop that right down in the middle. You could use sandpaper, you could use fabric, you could use a texture stamp, but all you want to do is texture the back of the piece while it is in the mould, so that it just has a bit of interest and so that it's not completely blank. And I'm just using this leaf texture because that generally works quite well. Okay, and that should work. That will get rid of things like fingerprints, because that you don't want. Alright, then you can see how that looks from that. And if you're worried at any point that it's not going to, oh gosh, what's the word, that it's not going to demold correctly, you can always pop this into the fridge so that it cools up and firms up. I'm going to try and demold it now. If it doesn't work, I'll pop it in the freezer. If that doesn't work, you can also bake it inside the mold. And let's begin. I'm going to first work around the stem, because that's the most delicate spot, and then all you do is you just start working around the outside, lifting pieces. Don't pull it up all at once, because that will tear things. Just work around the outside, slowly lifting things up and out of the mold, and you'll find that it starts to move pretty quickly once you get that first initial lot going. And there we go, it's almost out. There we go. And there you go, you got yourself a Monstera leaf. And there are some little pieces around the edge that are going to need some cleaning up. You could do that now with a craft knife, or I prefer to wait until afterwards once it's baked. Let's see, where's a piece of paper? Just place that here. Okay, and I'm just going to double check that there's no problems before I do anything. Okay, and it's all good. The only thing is that I don't really like this stem over here, and so I am actually going to trim that off now, because it's just kind of hanging out over there and I'm not going to be able to incorporate it into the design. there are a few large spots of clay that were left. I'm just going to trim those out now and just clean that up, and you can do it on a piece of paper, that way you can remove that stuff quite easily, and then that's going to go in the oven. Okay, and that didn't take too much. Then the last thing I want to do before popping it in the oven is place it on this little doming tool. You could use a jar as well, and just press that down with my palm so that it just gives it a little bit of shape. And then that would go into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And one last thing before it goes into the oven is I actually want to make myself a little bead for the top of it. So I've grabbed some of that leftover clay that I have from the mold, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that on top of this, like so. And I don't mind if it overlaps a bit. I want it to be a fairly big bead, and then you're going to pinch the edges to just bring that pattern up and over the white, and if you need to you can place some more clay down to cover that up. There we go. Press that all together, roll it in your hands until it's a nice smooth ball of clay. Okay, and there we go, that looks just about right. And then I'm just going to find the top part, grab a block such as this acrylic block here, and just press down to form it into a fairly large rondelle bead. And this is quite a large bead. Then I'm just going to grab a micro circle cutter, find the center and cut down, remove that clay, and then just get that out of there. Okay, and I'm just going to go back the other way as well, because that can help create a little bit of a dome. Right, and there we go, I've got myself a bead, and that's going to get baked with the other piece of clay. Alright, and here is how they both look out of the oven. And as they are, I quite like them, but this one I want to highlight the veins left by the leaf a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some, what is this? This is kind of a coppery brown paint. You can see what the name is over there, but I'm essentially going with a paint that looks like antique copper. And I'm just going to pop that down, and that was a bit much, but I can clean that up in a bit. And then I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to apply that quite liberally to the surface of the piece, getting it into all of the little nooks and crannies, and that is just to highlight those veins. You can skip this step if you want to. You could use a different color paint as well. I'm using this color because it's going to be the color of the findings that I use later on, so it will match in with that. But you're going to brush a layer of paint over the surface like this, and then you're going to allow that to semi-dry. Just give it about 5 minutes just to let the paint set, and then we're going to wipe off the top surface of the paint so that it just sits in the crevices. Alright, and I've let it dry for about 5 minutes, and the paint is still wet, but it's not as wet as it was when I first started. So now we're going to take that, and I've got a baby wipe here, and let me just clean that, and then you're just going to go very lightly over the top. I'm going to remove the wet parts first, and don't press too hard because you'll remove the paint completely. There's not a lot holding the paint on the surface here, and you can see that that is going to start removing the paint. And then once this is done, I'm just going to pop it into the oven for about 2 minutes. The oven's already preheated, and that is just going to set the paint so that it's not quite as loose, because as you can see right now it comes off very easily, so you definitely want to heat set it. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do, and you can see already that that's highlighted it well. Also, if you find that you can't get some paint off, you can also use some sandpaper on it once it has completely dried to clean up the last little smudges. Alright, and here is how that should look. Now I am going to varnish it, and I'm going to first drill the top of the piece so that I can suspend it when I varnish it. And you could have it lying flat and varnish it that way, but I'm going to suspend it because I want the back varnished as well. And I find this just goes a little quicker if I do that. There we go. And then I have the other piece over here. Alright, and here is the varnish. I'm using Varathane water-based gloss varnish. And I'm just going to grab a wire and my 2 pieces. And I'm just going to pop that wire through the hole and try not to drop them potentially, because that's always a risk. There we go. And then I'm just going to suspend those in there. And then I'm just going to let them hang out above the pot for about a minute, just to let the excess varnish drip off, because there's a fair bit of it there. And you could even use a brush to help that along. Also make sure to poke out the varnish and maybe blow a little bit to pop the air bubbles that are in the piece. There we go. And yeah, then you're going to move that over to a basket, and you're going to let that dry completely for about 15 minutes. Alright, and here is how it looks once it's been varnished, and the little bead as well. If you wanted this to have a glossier finish, you could always give it 2 coats of varnish, but I think I'm going to leave it with a semi-satin finish. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab a little copper jump ring, antique copper to be exact, and I'm just going to fit that into the hole, and just bear with me for 1 moment. There we go. Close that up. Okay, and I'm just twisting it around so that closed section is inside the leaf. Then I've got some of this brown faux suede, which matches with the antique copper, and I'm going to string 2 pieces of that through the jump ring, like so. And this is a little fiddly as well. There we go. Once you get it going, it shouldn't be too difficult. And then just make sure that those are sitting at equal lengths. So I will grab those 2 ends and just get it equal. That went too far. There we go. That should just about do. Then grab your bead, thread all 4 of those threads through, and then bring that down like so. Then separate your threads out, and I'm just making sure that these are the correct threads because I don't want to get 2 of the wrong ones. Right, then you're going to match those up, grab a cord end and close both of those loops over the cord. And I spend a little bit of time kind of getting them to overlap a bit, since the cord that I've got doesn't quite fill the finding. Here we go. Give it a tug to make sure that it's good. Then grab another jump ring, open that up, grab a clasp and attach it to the end like so. Then repeat for the other side. And there we go. That's how it should look. Nice and finished. And I'm quite happy with how that looks. It's quite a nice little effect, and bear in mind that the project that I did today, you don't have to copy exactly. The cane that I used can be used in a number of different ways, so don't feel like you have to do exactly what I did. Also keep in mind the stringing technique is another way to kind of get that looped cord donut finish on a piece that isn't necessarily a donut, so that also is a nice way to do things. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I do hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what you thought, and if you liked the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, as that helps the channel out and is greatly appreciated. And if you would like to support the channel further, please do consider becoming a member. There is a join button just below this video. There also is a link to my Patreon account in the description below. They're both a great way to support the channel, while also getting to view some exclusive videos that are not available on YouTube. Another way to support the channel is to check out my Etsy store, where I sell things such as this Monstera leaf mold, along with other polymer clay related tools and supplies. Also, the Etsy store is Jessima Design, and it will be linked in the description below. But yeah, that is just about it. If you have questions, feel free to leave them below and I'll get to them as soon as possible. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.